Morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am Tamara Johnson Sheely. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is the first Saturday in November. I am right off the election, right off the campaign trail. Good morning. It was an amazing journey, an amazing journey. Last I checked, I had I'm in sixth place with 105 plus thousand votes. I feel very accomplished. This was a statewide race for the top three candidates to have raised millions of dollars, and the fourth candidate to have raised less than me and still come in fourth. Ranking on the ballot does matter. It really does matter. So fourth place, fifth place is right now Matt Lieberman, which I anticipated that he would actually place. And I'm in sixth place. So with 105,000 votes, I feel very accomplished. I want to thank everybody that supported me along the way, contributions, volunteers, all the support that I've gotten in this campaign. I just want to say thank you. And let's just see how this all pans out right here in the state of Georgia. Let me see where my trusty co-host is this morning, Miss Robbie Caban. Let's see where she is. Morning, Robbie.
I was trying to be like, no, wait, give me.
You need a second?
I'm trying to answer the guest who's asking for the links and stuff. So just whatever you want, I will.
Yeah. How about I put you back in the lobby? I think we can say good morning. Robert and I was having a good conversation, so we'll bring Marcus in as soon as you get us going.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right, let's see where Mr. Robert is. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. You and I were having this conversation as Robbie gets everything squared away on the back end. We were talking about elections and where do we go from here and how do we even get here? And introduce yourself, Robert, so because some people don't know who you are, but go ahead and introduce yourself first.
My name is Robert Thompson. I'm a historian, and I have a consulting business that specializes in cultural tourism. And I'm working on a number of different projects towards promoting cultural tourism in Southwest Atlanta. And they're supported by a number of different organizations. Alternate Roots is supporting a program called Idle Crimes and Heavy Work, which focuses on African-American female incarcerations, particularly during the era of convict labor. A lot of people don't know that large portions of the city were rebuilt by convict labor after Civil War. Great book, Slavery by Another Name, kind of really gets into it in detail. So it's really been fascinating, and sometimes sad working and angry working on this project, but it needs to be done. And then I'm working with Transformation Alliance, again, to promote cultural tourism down the Lee Street corridor between Spelman College and Fort Monroe. So those are the kind of things we do. We work with the Atlanta Beltline to bring attention to the new West Side Trail. We develop tours for sites along the trail. So these are the kind of things that we do to the tourism business is basically a way of sort of highlighting all of the really great cultural institutions that we have in Southwest Atlanta.
And in Georgia, Robert.
Yeah, nationally. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of work with the Hammond's House, and one of the things that the move to Zoom has done is really broaden our audience. And so when we do in the Hammond's House, which is a local museum, does a Zoom event, we get viewers from all over the country and the world. So yes, we have world-class institutions here in this community.
Yeah. So how did we get here? Election 2020. We're gonna bring Mr. Marcus Coleman on in just a few moments. Election 2020. We got Trump might be out of the White House. I have not checked. I don't know where we are. I've just been trying to come down off of this, it's like running, and then at some point you have to like stop, and your brain still doesn't stop, and my body and my brain still trying to slow down from this. So so where are we, Robert? Have you been following us nationally?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I think the system, as we were talking about earlier, is sort of rigged. Somebody, and I can't remember who it was, told me that the only thing worse than living in a one-party dictatorship is living in a two-party dictatorship, and that's pretty much what we have in this country. I don't think anybody can remember the last time, other than a Democrat or Republican, who was elected to any major offices nationally or even statewide. So, and they've set the system up that way so that independent candidates really can't succeed. And so there are some. Go ahead.
Here's independent. We have an independent in the John Ossoff race with David Perdue. That independent has kind of tipped the scales, because nobody in the state of Georgia, if you don't get 50% plus one, there has to be a runoff. So that independent here in the state of Georgia is really kind of making us work, making them work, making the Democrats and the Republicans work for that win.
Yeah, I think that you pointed out about the money that's needed in campaigns just to get on the board. I mean, when you read newspaper, and the media is partly to blame for this. When they talk about candidates, they don't talk about the candidate's position. They talk about how much money has the candidate raised.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem, Robert. I can tell you that me being in sixth place, not because I didn't have a message, not because I'm not a great candidate, it's because I did not have the money to power the machine. Media is very expensive. People are like, well, why aren't you on television? Do you know how much television ads cost? Why aren't you on every radio station? I couldn't afford to be. I could afford to be on a few. Why aren't you doing this and why aren't you doing that? Mailers, it's expensive. And the one thing I feel like with my candidacy and my campaign, it was money. The thing that won over us in this candidacy and in this campaign was the money beat us. That's what won.
You certainly, didn't have, in any contest, the person with the most resources has advantage,
Yeah.
And when you have, millions, the advantage is multiplied over and over again. And like you said, it's not, like I said earlier, people want to know how much money you raise before they even begin to listen to you. And that's not, in my estimations, that's not where, our democracy should go. I think if you go back to the original question, is how we got here. Is that
let's hold that thought. We're going to bring Mr. Marcus Coleman in. He was scheduled to be with us at the top of the hour. I'm going to bring Ms. Robbie back in as well. So you can stay on the broadcast with us, though.
Okay.
Marcus, Robbie, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate y'all having me.
Yes. Good morning, Robbie.
Good morning. I am dying to hear this man's commentary. I haven't gone live in that event that I created. So you tell me, I can either stay on and either I'm gonna be looking at this phone or I'll just.
That's fine. Marcus, you want to jump in? What's your take on this election 2020?
Listen, I put out videos on my social media platforms from time to time, and I put one out yesterday that seems to have upset a number of my political colleagues. It was just a little disheartening, but translucent, seeing all of the excitement about Georgia turning blue. I get it, I understand it, but as we are turning blue, we still have, gentrification, mass homelessness. We still, are a state that if you take your behind in 30 minutes in any direction outside of Atlanta, you're in red clay, Georgia, as we're turning blue. We still have the largest Confederate monument in the world and unable to sandblast the images of hate and Confederacy, as we're turning blue. I just sometimes think we get too caught up in politics, and I realize that you're running for office. I think it's a necessary evil. Um, but politics sometimes has people omitting logic and running off sheer emotion. Um, so I can go on and on and on. I mean, what part you want to tackle?
Can I ask a couple questions?
Sure, sure.
So I want people to understand why, and I asked Mr. Coleman to come on because I follow him, but I also want people to understand where your background is, similar to Robert. Robert's a local resident. He's a business owner. He's been in Atlanta for a long time, and he has a history of engagement. So Mr. Coleman, can you give a little bit of your background so people who may not know you are going to know where you're coming from? Like, where do you live? What's your organization? How long have you been in the game? Just a little bit of that.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I basically kind of came out of thin air, some would think. I didn't grow up in the church, and I didn't grow up as an apprentice of some of the elders that have transitioned and some of the living legends. 15 years ago, after being unjustly incarcerated, and I mean a crime I didn't commit as in my early 20s, I spent 30 months in federal prison, and 13 of those months were in solitary confinement. And I found my calling during that time, and I came home. I'm from Atlanta. I came home, and I wanted to. At that point in time, I was very green. I wanted to just be a part of like minds and spirits, to try to combat, or prevent, what happened to me from happening to anyone else. It's a long, long story, but I ended up becoming the founder and former president for Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network of Atlanta, responsible for the acquisition of the Southeastern Regional Headquarters. Well, since 2013-14, I've left NAN due to some creative differences, and I started my own political, human, civil rights organization called Save Ourselves. Have had the honor of assisting a number of families. I know Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, those are roll calls, but I was honored to actually play a role with assisting those families. Kendrick Johnson down in Valdosta, got something I'd like to talk about a little later coming up on Monday with that. But just concentration on the criminal justice system, prison reform, and police terrorism would have to be in the middle of the crosshairs.
Thank you for giving that background and sharing such a private, even though I know you share it in general, but it does lead to context. I do follow you. I did see the video you made. What some people may not link is you also were pivotal, in my opinion, in terms of changing the way the political structure in Atlanta was occurring when our mayor was bringing in artists, like T.I. and Killer Mike. I saw that your video, which was so personal, you were in your car, I'm assuming.
Yes,
and it was so raw, and I literally saw the change from the mayor, some people felt was using people to kind of get people to see a certain perspective, artists, and then shifting after hearing you. And one of the words that you used on that video was you called Killer Mike killer, and you were like, do not let people use you. Yeah. And it resonated with me because to some degree, and this is kind of what I want to talk about, with whatever you want to talk about in the election, but I see that repetitive MO pattern of and some people might say the Democrats using minority voters, but at the end of the day, so when people are excited now, it reminds me of the Malcolm X video, but whose house is it? Right? So it's still, where did Tamira go? it's still like, whose house is it? So when you're talking about criminal justice reform and displacement and gentrification, and I know one of the people that you're working with directly, Monteria Robinson, for Jamarian Robinson, and where is the justice there? I'm trying to wrap my head around things just like anybody. So what are some of your thoughts on that? Because you are in the game, you are in the streets, you are in political revolution, you are tied in with elected officials, you are tied in with city government, but you're not bought. So I really want to know what you think, because everybody is really excited and okay, it's blue, but now what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you referenced that press conference. I had the opportunity to sit on a panel with T.I. About I don't know 2 years or so ago, dealing with the boycott of Gucci. That was my first time meeting the brother, and I saw some of the things that he was doing. I do like him as an artist, and I did want to link with him, but we never had that opportunity. So when I did that video criticizing him and Killer Mike and even my mentor and father figure, Dr. Joe Beasley, I thought once I hit the upload button on that video that was a relationship that would be severed. One that severed is probably incorrect because we never had one. But my point is, he took that criticism like a man. I mean, he's superstar status. He didn't have to respond, let alone, call me and ask to meet. And we've done some very good work since then, and use that as an opportunity to show what conflict resolution looks like. There's a lot of strong opinionated people out here, and sometimes we just don't know how to be respectful, even though we disagree. Whose house is it? I mean, Asiatic, African, melanated Black folk, have been fighting this false ideology of white supremacy since day one. I mean, even though I am very pleased with the momentum, that in the last year or so that we've had, with a couple of months, of course, being the spike or the height. But we still have laws and rules that are the ink was, dried by white supremacists. I say things that people don't feel is practical, but over in Chile, they just celebrated, abolishing their current constitution and are coming to the table to rewrite it. I think, it's not unpractical to think that, we need to amend the Constitution here, put a highlighter through the Bill of Rights, or put a red pen to the Declaration of Independence. You start talking like that, and people, kind of shy away as if that's far fetched. But until there are reparations that are paid for services rendered, until we gut some of these wicked, intentionally created laws to suppress a certain group of people, we'll continue to fight. But again, I am hopeful, because I do see more engagement, especially with the youth, and in the days where information is at the tip of your fingers. It's not as easy to bamboozle us. In this younger generation, I mean, like we like to say, they ain't playing the radio. So the pendulum is shifting. We have to have more intergenerational cohesiveness, in my opinion.
I'm glad that you expanded on all those topics. And I know Robert, if he wants to chime in, but it's some people are feeling like, and we don't know if everything's going to be tied up with lawsuits. There's all kinds of accusations of voter fraud. People are definitely celebrating Stacey Abrams' accomplishments, but there are also advocates who are saying, hey, this wasn't one person. There've been people in the streets, for a long time. Don't forget about movements. But there's also concerns that people are going to go to sleep now, thinking, that's it. We all collectively, the Democrats to some degree were in the hole, so they went to Abrams, who pulled it off, right? Who along with all of the people behind her, however you want to say that, ancestors or movement. I hope I didn't misspeak on that. But now what? So now are we going to think, because I've seen articles about Biden and the things that he represented that he's now apologized for. So now what? Right? We're still highest in inequity in Georgia. You still have mothers like Monteria Robinson, shout out to Monteria Robinson, waiting for her son's justice 4 years later. Murdered by our local officials with no justification, with 76 bullets. You wanted to say something about Kendrick Johnson? You were saying on Monday?
Well, I mean, I push back on that, Stacey Abrams, and that's what's gotten a lot of my colleagues mad with me. As one that's been out here for 15 years and connected to those that double and triple and quadruple my little time, in this social justice fight, we've never seen her. I'm just being honest. We've never seen her. We could have used her political power and capital on a number of issues: mass incarceration, grand jury reform. I mean, people would criticize me saying, "Well, Marcus, everybody doesn't have to be, at a rally or shouting." Well, that's not all that I damn do. So I can honestly say that she's a master politician. She ran at the right time. We were, exhausted from the beloved Governor Nathan Deal and his ignorance and rhetoric. At that time, Trump was, in office spewing some of the same ignorance and rhetoric. And so Georgia was ready for change. It's a reason why Miss Abrams lost, and I push back on what some folks say. It wasn't stolen from her. Were there some underhanded tactics that are legally on the books that the Secretary of State's office did? Yes, but we just got to be honest. I mean, she wasn't as appealing to the masses, combined with those of us who truly knew her. Knew that this was an opportune time for an opportunist. Now, when you've got the top dog and President Barack Obama campaigning for you, and then when you sprinkle that with Oprah Winfrey, hell, I might have been able to win the governor's seat. I mean, but to even lose with that, to me, speaks volumes. And so this credit that she's getting for this state turning blue, I think is terribly misplaced, because the reason this state is turning blue has to do with a lot of individuals, as you stated, but more simplistic. People are just upset with the current president. And that is why. So I just hate when credit is falsely given and loosely tossed around. Because we have in the replacement of Congressman Lewis, I just personally, don't feel the sister's spirit. I'm not trying to beat up on her, but it's disheartening that there's a political process that allows someone just to be placed in a position and not be elected by the people, especially a seat that is known to be about the people. So I say that because it's dangerous for who Georgia's Democratic Party, with influence from the national party, who they seem to cherry pick and what their reasons for that is. We need folks that's going to shake the trees. We need folks that's not going to be carbon copies of the past, or full carbon copies of the past. I just think that's what era that we're in. And I think in Georgia, I think there's an elite group that is attempting to be in power.
I concur.
Marcus, you said it. You said it. First of all, Georgia, I don't believe is blue. I think, Trump was just who he is, and a lot of Republicans wanted him out. I'm not quite sure we're blue. And I think with this special election, these runoffs that are going to happen, I think we'll get a taste of that, because I don't think that we're as blue as they think we are.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, it's one thing for Georgia to be on the cusp of turning blue with the presidential election, but you got to look and see who still runs this state, right? I mean, uh, and again, I mean, I don't want to, you know, I understand the work that many of my colleagues have put in, and I know we have mutual friends, and that is not to shit on their work, so to speak. It's just being realistic, man. Like, in I believe, Robin, you said it. Uh, you know, I'm hearing so much and seeing so much cheering. You know, I used to coach little league football like 7 years straight. And I used to have a saying, man, there's no cheering in the locker room at halftime. The game ain't effing over, you know, and while we're turning blue, you know, I just want to see that translate into some tangible reversing of legislation, implementation of legislation. Um, we got a long way to go. So I don't want to be one of those what they call negative Nancy cats. I'm just one man that I just, you know, we got such a fight ahead of us. I don't want to lose those that are engaged now with feeling like that's all we were looking for was for this state to turn blue. And many people will do that if we're not careful with our rhetoric.
Well, and I think too, to give a real concrete example to exactly what you're saying, Matt Westmoreland, who's on city council, I live in city of Atlanta proper, he's an at-large. He placed some legislation in, and housing's my wheelhouse. You know, I'm a licensed agent. I'm also an advocate. To me, if you don't have housing, you can't have structure. You know, you can't be productive. You can't live a quality life. And Matt Westmoreland, who's a Democrat, you know, who was campaigning for Biden, all that, just like the rest of our Democrats and our mayor, et cetera, he placed legislation out saying that now people who are harassing people on predatory sales on their homes would have a fine, right? It would be illegal. Well, and people were cheering about it the same way we're cheering about the election, but that fine was $1,000. And the people who are making money on those flips, on those predatory sales that are costing people generational wealth and damaging low-income Black communities specifically, and Matt Westmoreland is not Black. That being said, and he doesn't live in that low-income community, those people are making $200,000 in 90 days on a flip. And I know, I look at the records. So that legislation means nothing. So when we are cheering that, I'm just afraid, and I use the word afraid properly here. Robert, please use earbuds. I'm sorry I texted you. It's back noise. I'm afraid that we're going to drop the ball. That everyone thinks just like, oh, Matt Westmoreland did this legislation, this is great, and so on. But really, what does it mean?
No, point well taken. I said, point well taken. $1,000 is a drop in the bucket. I mean,
that doesn't mean anything to those flippers. They will gladly pay that and walk away with their $199, $900,000 minus the fine. So what does it mean now? We're turning blue. Georgia's turning blue, whether it's real or not, whether we wind up in lawsuits or not. What does it mean for tangible items to people who need change? And I don't know that we can get there where we need to be reformed, where you reference Chile, by electing people who play the right, whatever that phrase is, who follow. We don't get progress and reform by not electing revolutionaries.
Revolutionaries are hard to stomach to some, but I'll pause here because I believe the brother, he was speaking in this vein. I mean, the problem is the system itself. I mean, it's, do you want to be bit by a possum or bit by a raccoon? I mean, until there is a strongly supported political party opposite of the norm, the structure's already in place. But the brother was speaking on that, so I'll pause.
Unmute yourself, Robert.
What Tamara and I were talking about earlier was in fact that the system, is designed to make you discouraged. So that every time that you get a victory, you have to maintain this really intense level of scrutiny in order to get it all the way through. And most people have jobs. I mean, they work. They can't, so the system is designed to.
He's having internet issues. You want to jump back in, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, for those that are listening, I again don't want to seem negative. I'm just realistic, and we are gaining some grounds. I mean, monuments are falling all across the nation, statues, and as statues are falling, I say time and time again, we also need to concentrate on the statutes, that govern. Here in Georgia, we're the largest. We are the number one Confederate memorial. We have more monuments than Confederate monuments than any other state. We talked about Stone Mountain. We know in rural Georgia, we got a lot of very overt backwoods redneck racism. So to my political comrades who are cheering now, and for work, that they put in, I get it. But man, the days of your feet not being held to the fire are over, right? I mean, these youngsters will pull up at your house now nowadays, right? So as we're cheering blue, people like myself are going to be expecting some, again, real tangible change. And if that doesn't happen, we need to expose and ostracize those who claim to be about us. And that's the era that we're in.
Mm-hmm. There's a young lady,
excuse me,
heavily, God bless you, involved in the People's Town fight when Turner Field occurred. Her name is Tierra Troutman, and she's now studying, but she wrote something on IG, and I follow her the way I follow you, Marcus. And I just, it's a bit out there, but she's not wrong. she literally wrote, and I just want to, Tamara, is it okay if I read this real quick?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna warn y'all. It's a little.
Okay. Go, Robbie, go. Go, Robbie, go.
Yes, Georgia is quite the blue state with a blue capital city run by a black fascist ass mayor who condones the level of violence against the people. And then she put a screenshot below. The FBI with APD on the Atlanta Solidarity Fund advises has been raiding the homes of black activists, jailing them, and denying bail. This regression has been used against Black movements since the 60s to intimidate and end protests. It was racist and unconstitutional then, and it still is. She's on a public IG page. And she goes on to say, she names Keisha Bottoms, and I give her much respect for just coming out with it. The violent ass police force, the city councils that approves them and their funding, the black business entertainment elite and white corporate elites, and the quote culture quote they generate and export that affirms them are a fascist regime. She put up about 5 posts, but she ends with, so Atlanta, the black fascist neoliberal capital of the state versus the rural plantation, good old boy political stronghold. This ain't a verse, though. It's an intimate partnership that feeds off the death of the masses. The sooner y'all understand that plantation city suburban surplus entanglement and stop treating Atlanta's neoliberal fascist regime as a separate but not necessary for the continuation of the violence of Georgia as a deep South plantation state, we might actually get free. And
y'all might as well end the show now.
Mic drop.
That's right.
That's a lot.
This woman is accurate. And she's a young person, brilliant, was in the mix, saw the whole thing, is a true activist. And that's really why, people like me, I'm kind of confused right now. I'm thrilled about the positive change. I hope we don't wind up in lawsuits that we're going to have to pay for. I hope that this rumors of fraud or whatever, voter fraud, which there are rumors, there are people out there circulating in the streets that apartment complexes 4,000 deep all have mail-in ballots, and that the Trump administration who controls the federal is not going to allow it, and we'll be tied up in court. I don't know if that's true or not, but the same homeless people that I've been seeing for 10 years, I don't know that they can. So I guess this whole broadcast is about now what?
Right. Well, not to keep talking here, but again, I think that Trump, will go down in history as being one of the most popular organizers of the United States. That organizing just happens to be against some of the stances that he would defend, because honestly, I think, Trump is screwing everybody. I mean, he doesn't care about the base that, is emboldened enough to wear his little ridiculous hats. And, to me, I mean, I've been waiting for that base to realize how bad he's shitting on them and playing them. The base where you have militias, those are the kinds that'll sit up in trees with scopes. And I mean, he's really using them, shitting on everybody else, except those who he's connected to, and that's, that are wealthy. So he has helped to awaken, I think with the Obama administration, many of us, I was working up under Reverend Sharpton at that point in time, so got a chance to meet the president. And but many of us, were too busy oohing and ahhing. We were celebrating what we had accomplished and didn't had forgotten about the constructive criticism, in my humble opinion, which would have provided political cover, let alone pressure, to get some of the things we talk about, that Obama didn't do anything for black folks. Well, hell, we didn't ask for nothing. We didn't press. We didn't. That's the first time black folks went out and buying stars and stripe draws and bras. I mean, it's like, and so here comes Trump, and we're angry off of that, mixed off of the 8 years we didn't get anything, and now here comes Trump running it down your throat. Shit is not going to get better before it gets worse, and I think we're in that stage, in that era right now. So what's next? Shit, we keep applying pressure, we keep educating, we keep, no matter what your color or whatever your categories are, we ain't got to sit down and be drinking down buddies, but we got to build on common denominators and the powers that be. And I'll end with this. There's so much desperation going on amongst a certain group of Caucasians out here, right? The heartbeat bills, the abortion bills that were dominating the news before. I mean, it's not my position. This is the position of scientists, that genetic annihilation is at the doorstep of Caucasians. As this globe continues to mix, their recessive gene will ultimately cause the fear or the possibility of genetic annihilation. So they don't want to abort any babies. I'm not trying to get on the abortion, whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that there are the powers that be are desperate. They see the changing of the guards. They see the changing of time. And so they're going to come at us like they've been doing with any and everything. And people like, ourselves on this call, this show, this platform, and I know individually you guys, we got a sister running for office, and Robbie, I know that you're engaged in the community. We just have to be stronger allies and support one another where our common denominator is. And I honestly think the way this country is going, we're shifting, but it's not going to be only politician led. It's not going to be only clergy led. The respect factor for the various titles of individuals, we have to build on that. So build, teach, and we continue to stay in these streets, and I think we'll be okay. But exposing those within has always been a problem, and I think in this social media age and with the newer generation, like I said, they ain't got a problem about calling you out. Too many gatekeepers have been allowed just to sit there on their ass and be mediators and diffusers when things really need revolution.
Marcus, I know you said you had to, you were on your way out, but you just have to know that this broadcast is open to you anytime, anytime. Please come back. Please share your voice. We need it over here. And I'm going to continue to stay out here in these political streets. I'm going to ride their necks. I'm going to be the thorn in their side. I refuse to go away. And I'm watching this race, this runoff that, Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler. Somebody better adopt this Black agenda for reparations.
Come on now.
Don't, I will see you in 2022.
Come on now. I mean, I won't touch that. I'll sign off with this. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, the parents of Kendrick Johnson, it'll be 8 years in January that boy was found dead inside of a gymnasium in the core of a wrestling mat. We know that there have now been 3 autopsies. First one said blunt force trauma. First one said positional asphyxiation, that he dove in the middle of that mat to retrieve a shoe, got stuck and died. The second one said blunt force trauma. And the third one, I want you to think what that's like to exhume that your child's remains twice. Both the second and the third said blunt force trauma. We also know by the second autopsy that the family discovered Kendrick was missing every single organ in his body. No heart, tongue, liver, no nothing. He and his entire tongue and windpipe were removed as well. He was a hollow shell of flesh and bone, stuffed with newspaper and magazine articles. All of 10 of Kendrick's fingernails were cut down to the point of bruising. The clothes that Kendrick Johnson had on that day have still never been found. Surveillance footage from the gymnasium has been doctored. The case is closed. It was closed in 2016. We are pushing for the reopening of the investigation. We know that's an uphill battle. Shout out to my comrade, Tamika Mallory, who moved from New York to Louisville, Kentucky to fight on behalf of Breonna Taylor. Well, they had something historic that I think anybody who is in law or an advocate, I think you should be pushing this too. When the 20 hours of secret grand jury information was released by the Attorney General, I jumped on that. And the Kendrick Johnson family, we jumped on that, saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So we called for grand jury testimony in Kendrick's case to be released. Last tidbit on this, and I'll lead to what's happening on Monday. 3 people were named as targets of this investigation. 2 of Kendrick's classmates at the high school and their father, that happened to be a local FBI agent. He has since retired. Well, the feds raided their father's home when he was currently working. We know the feds, when they come to get you, they pretty much got you. So you think about what it meant for them to hit one of their own. The case has been closed. So I'll wrap with this. In this resurgence, I personally went to the Middle District of Georgia, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we wanted to submit those same things that I just named that we had done publicly. Well, I was told that Georgia, the U.S. Attorney's Office, has recused itself from the Kendrick Johnson case. There will be no questions answered. And they said everything has to go through the Northern District of Ohio. So we're headed to Ohio, and they could not give me a reason why nor when it happened. So we're headed to Ohio, U.S. Attorney's Office, the Northern District, to get answers about a dead Black child found in a gymnasium in Georgia. Something don't smell right. It never did with Kendrick's case. That's why I've been with this family for 8+ years. I love to come back after we get back on Tuesday and report what took place there in Ohio. But again, we got to travel. The parents have to travel to Ohio to find out answers about their son's investigation, who was found dead in Georgia. Something wrong with that.
Please, Marcus, come back, share with us, and whatever we can do here on the ground whatever I can do in my capacity, and I'm sure Robbie feels the same way, we are all in. I have talked with his mother. I am all in. So whatever you need, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I appreciate the platform. Appreciate it, Robbie. Appreciate you, sister, and good luck in the necessary evil lane.
Yeah, it is. Stick
Yes,
and stay,
ma'am.
brother. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
No problem. Peace.
Wow. I just wanted to keep up Waukesha's wow, because that's how I'm feeling right now, Robbie.
I mean, the resilience Mr. Coleman has to have to stay with a family for 8 years. And if you listen to the details of his case, when somebody's fingernails are removed, that's evidence, obviously. When everything's removed from him, there's a cover up. When his clothes are missing, how do you wind up in a gym mat? You know, and I've read about the case, and apparently it's a good old boy network situation. Here's Dom. And someone's being protected. That's why they got to go to Ohio, because Georgia won't do it. And interestingly enough, or Georgia Justice won't do it because they protect their own. But where does that leave us? Hey, Dom. Hey, Dom. I'm so glad you made it. Can you?
We can't hear you, Dominique.
Until he gets his mic.
Yeah. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hey, Dominique. Good to see you.
Great to see y'all as well. I'm coming live from one of my business partners' homes right now. Got caught up on a project, so I want to make sure I got into broadcast in the nick of time.
Well, we have about 15 minutes left, and just to tie it all together, Mr. Coleman, who's heavily involved in advocacy and criminal justice reform, et cetera. And I'm sure you know him, Dom. And Dominique, if you want to introduce yourself, what you do briefly, and where you're at, so we can tie it together. Dom is a media specialist as well. Please do.
Good morning, everybody. I am Dominique Huff. I am the founder of Homebrew News, and now our spinoff publication, ATL Main Street. We cover Metro Atlanta news and commentary, pretty much on the ground locally, particularly on the west side. And the business publication covers the entire metro area and soon to be the entire state. So we tell the stories that nobody else tells. And I'm very familiar with Mr. Coleman, and I take my hat off to him because I know he has done lots of work in the past. Even though I'm in Southwest Atlanta, he's in South Fulton. We both were on different sides of the South Fulton cityhood debate, and we still remain very cordial. I mean, politically, I think Marcus and I probably agree very little, but when it comes to the community and to the people, we agree overwhelmingly majority.
Thanks for introducing yourself. He was definitely giving us the background on the large picture, national, even globally. And to me, and I'm glad you're here for this, really what's happening on a national level, on the macro, is very similar to the micro, and where our city engagement and our local politics are. And so I've sent over, one thing Mr. Coleman mentioned was, where do we have another option? And if really the reform was really coming, it probably would have, true reform would have happened under Bernie Sanders. That being said, we have Biden, and that's certainly an improvement. So the whole broadcast was kind of like, what now? And what can we do to ensure that this is meaningful to real people? And we just don't get kind of the honeymoon we had with the Obama administration, but where we really, it was literally just a honeymoon, kind of. It didn't last, and never manufactured into something that was meaningful to real people.
And talk about manifesting nothing meaningful now, even under Joe Biden presidency. We're talking about a man who was there 47 years and did absolutely nothing, and now we think he finally gets it. That's the issue I see here locally. We keep voting for these people that have promises. They get it. They listen to us. They heard us. Folks fall for the okie doke, and we get the same exact thing. We see that in the city of Atlanta. How many of those incumbents told us they get it? They heard our voices. I got you. It's gonna be a new day, a new time, and they did nothing. I mean, I'm not a fan of Paul Howard, but when Paul Howard tried that game, it didn't work for him this time. And I'm glad the voters picked another person, even though it wasn't my candidate, but I support change in that office, and we're going to see what's going to happen from that. But I tell people, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Nothing's going to happen, to be honest. And I think we have to stop kidding ourselves that regardless of who won this election, that these problems are going to go away because somebody is a new person in office, and even here in the city of Atlanta or in city of South Fulton and these other places, like we got to stop being fooled by Democrats who keep telling us, "I got you this time." I'm like, why, as a black male, would support a woman who has a criminal justice record that would make the most reddish Republican even kind of clutch his pearls a little bit, then the father of the 1994 crime bill, but yet these are the same folks that are tearing up the city and telling us a Black Lives Matter, we got to have change, get rid of Trump. And don't get me wrong, Trump has his issues. But I tell people, you are so bad at Trump that you will put two people that create the reason why you have to have a Black Lives Matter in office. That's some sick crap. That is really sick and twisted. Does anybody see that besides me?
Well, I think that those of us who had a hard time voting at all recognize the irony of the options. You know, the pitifulness of the options. You know, so, and this is not, to Marcus's point, to everyone's point, this is not to poo-poo on anyone's work. You know, there's value with Miss Abrams, etc. But he has a point. Like, I've never been around Miss Abrams, and I'm out here, you know, and I applaud what she's done. But again, what will be meaningful about it? So one thing I want to cover with specifically Atlanta specific, Marcus brought up, you know, is there another party? And there's a Libertarian Party. And I actually was researching it last night. And this woman, Jo Jorgensen, actually got some votes, but I watched her on a video and she mentioned the lack of accountability and the lack of ethics, that we have no accountability in government. And I've seen that personally. So kind of want to I've sent over some documentation to Tamara to kind of go over an example that's happening in the city that's really going to impact Atlanta, which we're being watched nationally, obviously, for a multitude of reasons. But Dominique, you have a background on this. And Tamara, is it okay to do that slideshow really quick where we...
Yeah, where is it, Robbie? Is it in my messenger?
Just right after your StreamYard link, you're going to see a building. And, you know, I wasn't even sure how to introduce this situation, but when we're talking about the choices people have, I just want people to see how the city engagement structure works and what it potentially is going to cost people. So if our mayor is going to get some federal funding because now the Democrats and, you know, Georgia stepped up. Okay, see that building? Dominique knows this building very well. It is a quarter of a mile from the Beltline. How much do you think that building is worth? That is a 4-story commercial building, a quarter of a mile from the Beltline with a rooftop and city view. It has a commercial kitchen inside, a theater, a barbershop on, you know, etc. What do you think that building's worth?
That building should at least be worth $2 million.
Can we, sir, go to the next slide. Just flip the slides, if you would, please. So I just keep going.
That one?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Maybe I need to go back a slide.
Yeah, no. Okay, so keep flipping. That's actually another building right next door to it, that code enforcement. But see if you can go in the order. Okay, so those are homeless people that live next to the building, right by the Beltline. Okay, the building was bought by a brokerage, but keep going, and I'm gonna show you what it was purchased for. Dominique said a couple million. These are more of our homeless residents. Keep going. So this building's right here. You can see the Beltline right literally down the street from it. It's across the street from $1 billion library. Keep going. $1 billion library that we funded. That's what code enforcement is allowing. So they're coming. Code enforcement is basically coming after residents for taxes, but leaving commercial people like this alone, even though we can get revenue out of this. Keep going. You're going to see the tax record of this building. This is our beautiful library right across the street from this amazing 4-story historic building, Masonic, that was owned by the Post Office Labor Union. Keep going. That's just the location. Keep going. Am
I getting there?
Okay. See that sales history? You can see the owners, that was the Metro Masons. Okay, the Postal Workers Labor Union bought that building for investment. They sold that building to a brokerage. And I want people to understand how this happened. See that number that says $265,000. That was sold off market. Go ahead, keep going. How does that happen? I'm gonna try to do this really quick. Now, this is a different building that's less than a mile away. This is kind of something that I want people to understand. This building is now being sold. The problem with this building is that how do you get lending when commercial buildings are being sold, predatory sales for not even a fraction of their worth? You create an economy that's problematic. And this is in Southwest Atlanta and Atlanta proper. And what people have to understand about Atlanta is that under 20, that's where our development's going to go. That's our trend. The north side is stable. So everything that happens here is going to impact all of us, especially taxpayers. So just keep going. I promise I'm going to get to this. The way the first building was sold for $265 is the city structure in Atlanta. This is the Capital View Neighborhood Association. At the bottom of this, it says dues can be paid online. These people control what works. And so these people went to city council and funded for-profit tours. But these people only allow, and this is my neighborhood association, which I boycott, only allow people who pay dues to vote or hold office. So their agenda is not the agenda of the entire community. So keep going. That is how that building was sold. These are tours, and this is a for-profit screenshot. This woman works for Morehouse. She's a community engagement specialist. This is an agent who lives in Adair Park, who ran these for-profit tours with City Hall money, which is how these buildings and our homes were sold so below market. This is going to roll back around to taxpayers, and I'm going to show you exactly how. So keep going. These are all the tours that people basically said, come look at this side of town without aiding legacy residents. You're going to see why this matters. Just keep going. So these new people with their funding bought up these buildings and these houses. Keep going. All right, so legacy residents were not warned. And see, what happens is this man who's in charge of this, right, who's saying that this is about community, what normally happens that the people with an agenda, with a real estate agenda, place a black face in front of it. And that's what you're seeing here. Keep going. So we invited flippers, right? So there's all bunch of articles right now about how our legacy residents were cheated out of their homes. Well, this is who invited them. Keep going. Our neighborhood associations are structured, invited wholesalers who looked like people, who cheated people out of their homes. Keep going. This is what a flip looks like, an off-market flip. That's actually should be illegal. That's the type of legislation that Matt Westmoreland should have done. Keep going, please. Okay, these are brokerages that were using the Beltline name. So the Beltline is a for-profit company and a nonprofit company. So we have federal funds that go to this company. So when they participated in this, and there's a reason I'm getting here, in essence, City of Atlanta and our structure caused this gentrification, caused the loss of generational wealth. Keep going. Oh yeah, they're not going to be happy about me, but that's okay though. That's okay. Well, yeah, I can take it. So what happened is our NPUs were operating non-inclusively as well. So from the civic engagement base level, you see this is a secret group. That's because these are real estate people in these groups that control city engagement. And there's a point to this. I just want people to see the evidence of it for themselves. That is an agent, a licensed agent involved in this at the top of it, in the secret group for NPU structures. Keep going. Okay, so here, this is the problem. This is an article that just came out in the AJC, and we read this on the last broadcast. So in Sylvan Hills, all these communities that were targeted and hit and by City of Atlanta, with City of Atlanta funds, okay? These people they sold their homes for less than half of the value of what they were worth. Lost generational wealth in low-income Black communities. Keep going. And the question really is who caused this? So now if you look at this building, read what that building is selling for. That's $1.6 million. So they bought it for $265 off market because neighborhood associations who charge monetary dues invited them in for profit, control the NPUs with secret groups, stole these buildings from people. Okay, now watch what's going to happen. Stole people's houses, and City of Atlanta funded it. You saw it for yourself. Keep going. Okay, now watch who's going to pay for this. So now the Beltline, right? Who's allowed this, who allowed these tours, who invited these people in, right? Now we're hyper-focused on equity, right? Who's going to pay for that equity? Keep going. See, they're coming from my taxes, and that's why I'm talking about this. If you look at this is a start with REIT. A REIT is a real estate investment trust. They're buying 645 million of affordable housing. Why do REITs buy anything? To make money. So people are going to make money off of affordable housing. Now, who's going to pay for affordable housing? You got it. And who caused the affordable housing crisis? Go ahead, keep going. So now Zillow, who can buy directly, we are seeing a change completely in industry. But see, this is going to impact certain communities more than anyone else. And you know who those communities are. Those are low-income Black people and divested neighborhoods, because that's where the profit is. But who caused this, right? So City of Atlanta funded this, and now City of Atlanta is going to come to us for taxes to fix it? And yeah, they are, because keep going. And I'm going to show you exactly how they're going to do it and how it's facilitated through our NPU structure, which needs to change, but there's no accountability in government. So now Invest Atlanta, who had a hand in all of this, right, who's a for-profit, is getting a chief equity inclusion officer, right? So you got to wonder, why did they need one? Okay, why aren't those departments rolling over with new leadership? That's a good question. So keep going. And we're almost at the end of this, I know. So here, this neighborhood association, right? See right at the top of it. Don't forget to pay your dues. So you can vote, you can hold office, and we approve what's allowed if you pay your dues. Okay, that's the city structure in Atlanta, and they give letters of support to the NPU, and that's what gets done at planning. So keep going. This was just in one of their newsletters. So now they have approved a building, a letter of support for a building that if you only need a letter of support if you're going to get public funds. So that means somewhere this secondary building is being purchased with public funds. Keep going. Okay, so these people approved it, meaning they're probably going to have a hand in it. So this is one of our residents who has been around for 10 years. He has no legs. He has no housing. He collects cans for a living. I'm bringing this all back. We have a large level, a national level. We have a local level, right? So you think he cares whether Trump or if the Biden won? And with all this mess going on, and this is happening with our city. This is happening with Invest Atlanta. This is happening with the Beltline. This is happening with planning. Okay, and who's going to pay for this? You just saw it. They're getting letters of support, and the same people who control that are giving the letter of support. And who's going to pay for that? That's public funds. Why you need a letter of support? And see, the only reason I figured this out was because I asked the woman who's handling this, and she lost her mind on me publicly. And when she did that, I realized there's something wrong. So if you're okay with our city and our elected officials, our mayor and Invest Atlanta and the Beltline and the Department of Planning allowing non-inclusive city engagement for us to pay for later, meaning we are going to pay for profits. The person or the organization that's buying that building, which is supposedly to put it back into the community, is a for-profit. Look at what we're doing. And how can we take care of this? I'm not sure if there's one more. If there is, just let me know. But Dominique, you've been watching. This is this man passing through. This is right by the Beltline. It's a major intersection. And he has no legs. And what happens is they use these, well, not this person in particular, but they use these people for bike lanes. That's what's happening in our city. It's a racket. And go ahead, see if there's another one. And I think there might be a couple more. And then Dominique, please take over.
There's no more. I don't see any more. I'm going to let Dom jump in because we're at the top of the hour. Dom, you want to jump in?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, what she's explaining through those images is what has been going on. And as we're seeing that people who have tried to buy these things go to the proper channels and they was unable to do stuff. And therefore, those ideas are being repackaged and repurposed. Now, I haven't talked to this young lady in question from the Guild. I have seen the chat where it just escalated, where it just went out of control, where the simple questions were being asked by Robbie to the woman, and the woman accused Robbie of sharing pictures of her husband and her newborn baby all across the internet and to strangers and everything. And so it kind of went left, but we're going to pick that back up. But this is very concerning because a lot of that property over there is, you may have heard the term, the Murphy Triangle, which is right around the corner from Oakland City MARTA station. that is the area that the Beltline wants to get a master developer to do a multi-use development. And then the Oakland City Bar Station of 2015 had sit down the Bradley parking lot out for bid to allow developers to try to fix the lines to build a multi-use development. But unfortunately, because of the depressness of that neighborhood, the only developer that stepped forward was somebody who wanted to build an apartment complex, and MARTA collectively said no, because the community not just want just an apartment complex that's the MARTA station, but they wanted something live, work, play, such as the grocery store, something where people can get off the train and do things that kind of help lift that community, because that is a food desert. So we're looking at these issues of prime real estate that we've all said we want land near these MARTA stations to be mixed-use development. This is even going further south to the East Point and into College Park, where everybody said, hey, this is going to be the wave of the future. Everybody's going to be riding this train. Everybody's going to be doing all sorts of unique traveling. We need to make sure that these neighborhoods are in place. So therefore, when the millennials are now the majority population and they want to park their car and get on the BARTA train or ride a scooter or a bicycle to these places, that we have neighborhoods in place for them. But the question goes to now is, we already know millennials are facing a lot of issues of their own. That came out in the 2012 election, is what can we do to make sure they have a piece of this pie? Because we're hearing terms like gig economy, freelancers, lots of companies now are making people kind of go into business for themselves by default, because they say, hey, I hire you, but you got to be a contractor. So she is pointing out she's pointing out phase one of this. Phase two is going to be who's going to live there to enjoy it. I mean, we catch a lot of flack for trying to do holistic development, because I tell people we need more than just $8 an hour jobs at these warehouses. And these warehouses are going to be doing automation very soon. They're going to put machines in there. They're going to be doing all the picking and the packing and all of that. And on day we'll have people doing is driving. And even at that point, Uber will probably take that over. So if you don't have a Splinter, I know I don't have one. I don't know anybody that has their own personal Splinter sitting at home. It'd be great for them. But I mean, I'm seeing what part two of this is going to be.
Thank you, Dominique, for the overview. And I want to make clear, this isn't about that project. That project is an example. So what we honestly need to understand is this is very similar to us having a two-party system, and really, Georgia or Black people showing up to and performing, right? And then what are we going to get out of this? So this situation is no different. When City of Atlanta and Invest Atlanta and the Department of Planning and the NPU structure and the problematic city engagement causes gentrification and then comes to our taxes to make us pay to fix the gentrification that they caused, we should be looking at a radical reform. A radical reform. And where is our city on that? Because who is going to benefit from the money that we're going to pay, right, for these projects? I don't think it's our legacy residents, and we have time now. So if the mayor is in bed with Biden and the Democrats and so on, because Georgia pulled it off, then our legacy residents should be protected.
Thank you, Bobby. We're going to wrap it up. We're at the top of the hour. Mr. Dominique, please give us your website. I don't have it on the screen, but tell us your website and how people can find you and contact you, and don't be a stranger to the broadcast, please.
Okay, it's my telephone number is 404-451-1240. That's 404-451-1240. And my website is myhomerule.com. That's MyHomerulnews.com. We'll have some new content coming out hopefully by Monday. So yeah, I'm going to be making some rounds again on this broadcast. And I have some more community leaders that I've told them about you, Tamir, that want to come over here to share some things, particularly in terms of the legacy resident issue of what's going on, and some people who have been fighting these issues for 30 and 40 years to kind of see how things are kind of the reset button is being hit. So I tell people, to all my Democrat friends, congratulations, but I'm not celebrating. I think it's going to be people who think this is a win. It's going to be a loss. And
I just don't want us to get rocked back to sleep, Dominique, because I got a feeling that's what's going to happen. They're going to try to rock us back to sleep, as if things are back to normal. Y'all can go back to sleep now.
We don't need legislation that means nothing, like the one Matt Westmoreland passed. We need real meaningful change that's going to make a difference, monetary change. That man who's rolling around with no legs, picking up wheat cans, recycling cans, needs a home to live in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, that's just one of many problems. We have no homeless shelters. You have bad schools. Where I spent half this week fighting an issue with a parent because the school was dropping the issues with recommendations and things, a special needs child that had an interview with Harvard University, or Harvard College, of all places. So, I mean, it's a lot of things that we're dealing with in this dual system. I know we're at the top of the hour. What Tamara's trying to, I know Tamara's got in her show, but it definitely be a part 2 of these issues.
Yes, sir. We look forward to having you back. You can find Mr. Dominic again at Home Rule News. Say it again, Dominic.
It's My Home Rule News, MyHomeRulenews.com.
Yes, and you can find Ms. Robbie Caban on her website at robbiecaban.com. I am Tamara Johnson Sheila. You can find me at Tamara for Georgia right here. We're here every week with the weekly broadcast, giving voice to our issues and our activists and activism right here in Georgia. Thank you, Ms. Robbie. Great show. Thank you. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you soon.